theme of today is success. And Laura is going to talk about how we can help our students achieve success, whereas Tammy is going to talk about how we can achieve success. Woo-hoo! So, them as come in late loses.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Lead us, lady.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody know Tammy? Tammy Dindoffer.
Hi. We
you've
have
been
not
here-
met.
Richard.
What?
It's
20?
nice to meet you.
26 years? 23.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I didn't get the 25-year opinion, so I think it's 23.
Okay,
I'm not
23.
sure.
Okay. And Tammy is, of course, the dean of the School of Human Services.
Yep.
And before that, you were the associate dean for what was it?
CPS.
For graduate and professional studies.
Mm-hmm.
And most of your career was in graduate and professional studies.
Yes.
But we are gradually converting you to one university.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I'm converted.
Okay, all right, good, good. Not least because we were recently schooled by one of our accreditors as to the value of being.
But I know, and I will definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Mindy, you should have been sent electronically, or if you weren't yet, you will be, the little handout that I'm gonna go over, okay?
Okay, great.
Okay. So here we be.
Thank you.
Laura, you want one too?
Sure, why
All
not?
right, lady. I think I gave
They
you
were here
two.
in hopes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't need one, I was gonna give them out to anybody.
Oh, okay. Well, here. Then here you go. Alrighty. I'm not gonna go over merit plans because somebody's coming in a
Amy
little.
James will be
Amy
doing it.
James is, actually, I just left the same meeting she's in right now, so thank you, I got out of that meeting. Anyway.
So did I.
So I wanna talk to you guys about the way, we're in a unique position. Because as faculty, we have the ability to determine our own success. Depending on how much time and energy we want to put into our own personal and professional development. And the university has various ways in which they support us doing that. And while we're doing that, we're also responsible for our own promotions. And that's going to be talked about later. The merit plan is part of that. It's not all of it, but it's part of that. But what I want to talk to you about is there is different promotion eligibility. And as you know, a university has different levels, and you start as an instructor, and then you're assistant, and then you're associate. And at each level, there's a bunch of steps. But you have to be at each level for 5 years before you could go on to the next level, no matter how quickly you climb up those steps, okay? So that's kind of the bottom line. So you want to make sure and do whatever you can to make sure that the following year you can go up in steps, whether that's
Which are now called points.
points,
Simplify life.
which
Yeah.
she'll talk about because she was on that little committee.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's very important that you do that because basically you are in control of your own salary increases. So, and also then you're in control over your qualifications for various opportunities that might come down the pike for you. So, the next thing I wanted to just talk to you about is faculty development. You may or may not be aware that each faculty person is allowed $700 annually to spend mostly however you want. You do usually need approval by your department chair. Some of you are department chairs. So, you know, I guess you can, yeah, send it to the provost. I know as dean, I get them from my faculty chairs, send them, I just get them all, because they just send them, they don't want to deal with them. So, usually, it used to cover a lot of books and stuff too, but a couple years ago we said, you know, that's not necessarily faculty development in terms of just purchasing books. So conferences, workshops, you're presenting at a workshop, you're going to a workshop, conferences, memberships, Those kinds of things would be great. For instance, in a couple of weeks, I just sent to my minority faculty an opportunity where the ACE, the American Council on Education, their Women in Leadership, is having a conference in Lansing for women of color. And so I just sent them the link to it because I think that'd be a really good opportunity for them to go. That would come out of their professional development. So, alrighty. The other thing is, if you are so inclined to, after you're here for a while, you're established, and you would like to do some heavy-duty research, or you have a project that you would really like to do, you can apply for sabbatical. And sabbatical basically gives you a semester off. I think you can apply for 2 semesters, but it's unusual. Is that correct?
That's at half pay.
At half pay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You get the equivalent of a semester pay, a semester period off. If you choose to do it over a full year, then you receive only half pay.
Each semester?
Yes.
Right,
Mhm.
okay. Alrighty.
Now, let me mention one other thing with respect to the $700.
Oh,
If you want to go to something very expensive,
oh,
you are allowed to roll the $700 over to the next year.
mhm.
So you have $1,400.
Right, so if
that
you
can
know,
spend.
yeah, if you know the following year there's something big that's happening and it's out west and that plane fare is gonna be expensive, you can save it and roll it over. And you can also talk to your dean or your department chair because there might be other funds available to help make that happen. So don't just assume you can't do something. You should check it out and have a conversation. And so anyway, with the sabbatical, you have in front of you the sort of rules of engagement. But the bottom line is you need to apply for sabbatical. It's reviewed. You're notified if it's approved, and it's for the following year.
Right now
Okay.
in the handbook, it says we award only 2 sabbaticals a year. We just changed that. We are awarding 4.
Yeah.
The applications have already gotten in for this year, but we will award 4 sabbaticals for next year.
The next opportunity I want to talk about is educational leave. And this is for those of you who may wish to at some point pursue a terminal degree and push comes to shove. For instance, we did this last year with one of our faculty in counseling. She applied for an educational leave for a semester, and we granted that so that she could get some of the research done that she needed to do for her PhD. And we have to have her finish her PhD because we have to have her with a doctorate for our accreditation. So in order for her to meet all the deadlines, that was an opportunity we were able to take advantage of, okay? So that is also there for you if you choose to do it, and all the little rules are in here. But I don't think that is taken advantage of very often at all. And I know the university would want to be pretty stringent with it, but still, it is a good opportunity that I don't think people do take advantage of. Yeah.
How long do you have to be here in order to apply for an educational leave or sabbatical leaves? Is it like 5 years, 10 years? What is it typically?
There's no stipulation on the educational leave, and I really don't know about the sabbatical
It says you have to be here at least 2 years for the education leave.
for the education leave, but I don't know about the sabbatical.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It says as early as the 6th year of full-time teaching.
early as a 6th year. Okay. Okay. Which makes sense.
And
They want you to be invested.
The Professional Development Committee vets all of the applications and approves them or disapproves them and ranks them, and then send it to me for a final decision.
Okay. The other thing that you may or may not be aware of when you were hired is that you and your immediate family have 100% tuition reimbursement for any undergraduate courses. So
After you've been here a certain amount.
after you've been here a year, and then it's half for the second year, and then it's full for the third.
4.
Fourth?
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. See, So, for instance, I took a class a few years ago. I took a history class that was running out of the sites because I was interested in it and it wasn't gonna cost me anything. And so that was great. I just sat in the back of the class. I just didn't have to do anything. I just got to listen to everything. So, because obviously I don't care if it's transcribed or not, but all three of my girls went to Spring Arbor, well, two of them went to Spring Arbor and one went to another school on the consortium.
Yeah, explain that.
There is a long list with hundreds of schools on it that are in the CCCU or other participating Christian schools. And so your child needs to apply for the tuition waiver at those schools, and usually schools only have so many slots. 2, 3, 4 slots is usually common. Once your child's in and they're performing well, they're in. You don't have to worry, but you don't have to reapply. But they should probably apply at a couple of them because other people all around the country, other kids are applying as well. So, but that's a great opportunity. I mean, for me, that was $80,000 a child, 80,000 times 3. So I never would have been able to have sent 3 children to a private Christian school. Otherwise, is she left out? Are you left out? Oh, you're fine.
Then you wouldn't be here in time. So, please sign
So,
in. Yeah,
now
let
for-
me interject.
Yeah.
We participate in 2 consortia. One is the CCCU and the other is the CIC.
mhm.
And this is a professional courtesy that is offered to faculty at participating institutions, so their dependents are eligible for this. But in our case, I think we've got 5 CIC slots and 3 CCCU slots
That we have here.
that we have here.
Mhm.
And there is a committee that sits down because we get applications and we decide of all the applications, which ones are we going to accept for the slots that are available. Because if we have a student already here, as you said, who's performing well, we're not going to kick them out on behalf of some other student that comes in. But it's a great opportunity. Again, much as we would like to have your students come here, you know, it broadens the scope of schools where they can be considered.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And we also, it's 50%, the same guidelines of of employment, for length of time of employment, apply for the graduate programs at 50%. So you could take graduate courses in another program, or your spouse could. It is not transferable to children for grad school. Okay? But after 2 years, it's 50% for that, which is a great. And we have had a lot of staff and some faculty take advantage of that. Hi. You also have the ability as faculty to go on a cross-cultural exchange as participating faculty in training, so to speak. You can also, after you have gone and you have been trained, if there's an opening for a lead faculty in a cross-cultural adventure, you can do that as well. You've led 3 cross-culturals?
I've been on 6,
You've been on 6, but you've led,
0.
oh, you've led, so you've been the secondary
leading next
faculty.
year.
You're leading next year.
2 I'm leading next year.
Okay, okay. And we have had many faculty that have done that because you don't have to, well, you're all, well, no, Sherry, yeah. We've had faculty at the off-sites that have done this too. Marty Covey's been a secondary faculty.
And also, Kim, until recently, you were an adjunct and you were still able to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing to be able to do, you know, a way to travel and learn. So I would definitely encourage people to do that, that's for sure. The faculty are evaluated. Do you want me to talk about the evaluation
Well,
form?
talk about the grants, the scholarship grants. Okay,
scholarship grants.
Faculty are also eligible to apply for scholarship grants, okay? We
Yes.
have a bucket of money that we
Mhm.
award in the fall. In the spring, if there's money left over in academic affairs, I try to fund as many additional requests as we get. So there's a deadline for the fall and a deadline for the spring. I think the deadline for the fall is already passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because it was the sabbatical and the grants applications
Mhm.
that just came in. But keep that in mind, if you have a project, you want to do something that is beyond the $700, and the grants are awarded, they're by dollar value, but you can take part of the dollar value and use it to offset load if you want. So in effect, you can buy 3 hours of load to work on a project or something of that sort. So that's another, we are very desirous of faculty doing research and professional activities that are going to enhance your career and your ability to serve our students.
And Kimberly just mentioned research. If you're teaching at least 12 credit hours in grad, you're eligible for graduate research offload hours, meaning you make an application to a committee from Graduate Council and you explain what type of research it is that you're going to do and whether or not you're requesting 1, 2, or 3 credit hours for it. And then you're well then it's, the committee gives a recommendation to Kimberly and she sends out a letter to you letting you know whether or not it's been granted. And so then you're teaching however many 1 to 3 credit hours less load because you're doing the equivalent load hours in research. So,
If I can interject, the traditional way in which we've handled graduate load is we've awarded 4 hours of load for a course, which otherwise would, for the student's perspective, is a 3-hour course. The reason for that was the desire that that 4th hour be used for research and scholarship. But it was very amorphous, and anybody who taught even one graduate course automatically got 4 hours. So the Graduate Council regularized the whole process 2 years ago.
mhm.
And if you teach a certain number of graduate credits, as Tammy said, you are then eligible to apply for, in effect, that 4th hour for each course that you're teaching to pursue your scholarship.
And we've gone through that cycle twice now. We finished up our 2nd cycle, and so it's been refined. You know, the first year we found the flaws. It was the first time we did it, and so we refined it this year. And I think it's pretty solid. We'll have the same thing will happen then this spring. We'll send it out and people have to apply. And then the decisions are made before load's set in April or May. So,
Question,
yeah.
the doctoral completion forgivable loans, it looks like it has been suspended. Is there any change to that, or
Not yet,
not yet?
not yet. But it hasn't disappeared because we have ambitions to put it back in.
They didn't take it out of the handbook because the intent is to reestablish it. So, which is a great thing.
As budgets permit.
There is a evaluation form used by the university in evaluating all faculty. All faculty should be evaluated annually. To be perfectly honest, the full-time faculty have not all been evaluated annually. I think in some areas they're tighter on that than in others. New faculty should all be evaluated probably within the first semester that they're teaching. We have a rule that all of our adjuncts teaching their first course are evaluated, and then of course all the full-time faculty.
We being the School of Human Services.
Yes, sorry, but I'm not sure how that's done in other schools or other departments. But university-wide, full-time faculty should be evaluated using the common form during the first year. So you shouldn't take offense to it by any means. And my viewpoint on evaluations is that they're a great time for for having a really good conversation. I like to take people out to breakfast or something after I've done the evaluation, like send them the results electronically so they can see it and process it ahead of time. Let's go out to breakfast, let's talk about it, what worked, what didn't work, what did you like, what didn't you like, what did you learn from this, what did the students learn from this, should we have curriculum changes because of your experiences, all of that. That's really good conversation. And so that's the intent of it, so that you can learn and grow. So, your file, your personnel file is kept in academic affairs. All full-time faculty files are kept in academic affairs. You have the right to see your file at any time, and you have the right to respond to anything that's in your file at any time. So, and I think that's about all I need to talk about with you folks, unless you've got some questions.
Because Amy's going to take us through the merit plan
Right.
in detail, which tweaks the promotion criteria a little bit. In fact, the promotion committee is going to be putting out an email in the next couple of days clarifying what we're going to do in this time of transition.
Okay.
But basically, the message here is we want you to progress. We want you to grow within your discipline. We want you to have opportunities to progress in terms of rank. Amy will take you through the merit plan, but there are levels within each rank, which are at different pay scales. So even if you aren't yet eligible for promotion, you can increase your compensation that way. And bumps, which you'll talk about, give you additional opportunities to increase your compensation.
Yeah, I have one more thing I wanted to say before I step down, and I'm really sorry, but you'll notice on the page labeled 6.8.4, policy 6.8.5, purchasing assistance for academic regalia. I think all of us have it in our agreements, in our salary agreements, that we're supposed to be attending graduation. But I would say that's more of an honor rather than a duty. I still cry at every graduation. There's some story that gets me going. I just know it's gonna happen. And for us, for School of Human Services, sometimes we have 2 graduations. It just depends, and so it's really hard. So our faculty's kind of split between the graduations. But I would really, really encourage you to look at graduation as a really wonderful opportunity to celebrate what you've done. And if you don't have regalia because you just never had it, you'll notice in the policy the university will help you purchase it. And I will say there's companies online in Canada that sell the same things for like half price. My doctoral gown was almost $2,000 in the States and got it for $800 online in Canada. So I would check it out, but I'd encourage you to get your own because you're gonna be wearing it at least twice a year. Well, no, there's baccalaureate. So at least 3 times a year you're gonna be wearing it. And so you're really gonna want your own. And it's just nicer when you have your own. So, I mean, when you don't and the registrar's office orders it, you kind of get stuck with whatever hood they have left and it's just not good. So anyway, that's my, my pitch.
Now, Tammy, before you disappear, and
Yes,
I'm sorry to hold you up, would you explain grad council?
Oh,
Since you are
sure.
the chair of grad council.
Oh, sure, my pleasure. So, several years ago, almost 10 years ago now, when we had our HLC visit, they dinged us because we had just grown so many graduate programs and we really didn't have a separate graduate culture. Everything was kind of intertwined and sort of messy. And so one of the things that we started was grad council, and that's where if you teach at least 12 credit hours in grad, you are a member of grad council and can attend the meetings, but all the department chairs automatically attend that have graduate programs. And so there's about 12 or 14 of us in the registrar's office too. Anyway, it's kind of like Senate, but at the graduate level. If there's a new course, a new program, you need to go through graduate council for approval. If you've got a major change to a program, go to the graduate council for approval. If you want to change your modality, point of information, this is what we're going to do you guys have any feedback? And it's been a really good sharing time because a lot of the grad programs have some of the same issues, and so they've been able to share a lot from each other. And as a matter of fact, some issues have come up recently that different like social work said that they needed this program, they needed to purchase a program to help them track their internships. Well, it turns out there's 2 or 3 other programs that are having issues too. So that conversation came up through graduate council. So now we can look at, maybe one program that can service university-wide needs. So it's a way for the directors to get together and talk and make sure we have accountability for the quality of our programs and their accessibility and the way they're recruited.
And grad council did define who is a graduate instructor, did set the parameters for eligibility for the graduate release time. You've developed a common admissions package, welcoming graduate students to make them understand they're graduate students. And it's sporadic, despite what we have a publication called Flourish.
Yes, it's supposed to be quarterly, but it's not quite
It's
quarterly yet.
sporadic.
But I think everybody's just really busy, and so it gets done when it can get done. But yeah, that's all the good news stories, who got this award and what students, had something great happen and those kinds of things. So if you do know of students that go on to graduate school and have any great success or something great happens to them, please let us know, because we want to celebrate those, and Flourish is the newsletter. It's one way that we can do that. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Bye, Mindy.
Amy, if you don't mind, then Laura, go first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Laura.
Yes.
Explain all your manifold responsibilities.
Manifold.
Manifold,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, first I'll kind of start off with, I want to make sure that you guys know kind of all of the resources that we have available in the department that I'm in. So I work under the Student Development and Success Department. And so that incorporates student development and learning right over here. Academic student connections opposite this wall. And then I'll kind of go through a bunch of the different areas in there. So then also the Center for Student Success and Calling, which is where my office is. So within the Center of Student Success and Calling, we have our career advisors. So they do resume reviews, and so they work really strongly alongside faculty. Anytime that faculty are able to incorporate some sort of resume review or talks about career exploration, what can a certain major lead to as far as a career path, they work alongside faculty pretty regularly, so know that that's a resource for you as well in your classroom. So, resume reviews, connecting with employers for off-campus employment, and then also practicums and internships to fill a student's experience alongside their academic program here. Then we also have our Director of the Office of Intercultural Relations, Eric Beta, within the Center for Student Success and Calling. Our Director of Student Success and First Year Programming, that's Carrie Williams. So she oversees the peer advisors and kind of the COL 100 program. And starts off, as soon as students arrive on campus within Welcome Week, she kind of gets their experience started. What does it mean to integrate faith and learning here at Spring Arbor University, and just really a transformative experience for them. She kind of kicks that off. And then we also have our student success advisors, who I oversee our student success advisors, and they are primarily responsible for meeting with every incoming student within their first semester. And they divide up the majors with the exception of 3 majors. So nursing students, social work students, and school of education. They have their advisors within their departments. But other than those 3, our student success advisors meet with all of the other incoming students to plan out their experience here at Spring Arbor University. make sure that they understand all of the requirements within the major, major and minor, how those all can work out, and make sure, again, that they've got kind of a rock solid plan for success.
To be specific, you lay out the courses that students should be taking.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So that if you are the faculty advisor to a student, the student will likely come in saying, here's my course list, here's my grad plan that I've already worked out with the student success advisors.
Yep.
So you can look that over and have a conversation, see if it makes sense. But the difficult work, really, of figuring out a student's program has essentially been done for you.
Yeah.
You work very close with the registrar's office to make sure that
Yeah.
all the requirements are being met appropriately.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, and also the academic departments as well, so that they understand if there's any change in the course offerings, if it's changed from a fall class to a spring class, they make sure that they understand that and can inform students while they're meeting with that as well. And then one thing that they really kind of rely on faculty advisors for is more kind of like the career path stuff as well. So they'll plan out the core curriculum stuff within the major. But then if there's electives within the major that as students kind of trying to sort through, I don't know which of these two classes will set me up best for the career path that they want to go into, and so that's where they kind of rely on the faculty advisors to give that insight and explore that.
One area that I'm struggling with is that area because I don't have any experience with any of that. So what do you advise? Just meeting with the chair of the department, meeting with other people within your department to try to figure out how to work with that? Is that best, or is there something with your services that it can come in and learn
Yeah,
more?
so I would say the faculty, the chair of your department would probably have good insights in that, and then also our career advisors as well. I am fully, supportive and definitely encourage as much as faculty can work alongside anybody in our department. I think that just provides a lot more support. for
It might be
students
worth
and
coming down and
resources.
seeing how a plan is put together.
Right.
True.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the student success advisor.
But you do have drop-ins in the course of their time with us, do you not? If students change their major or they just want to make sure they're on track.
Absolutely, yeah, I was
They're-
gonna say
they're
that
not-
too.
They're not set up as freshmen, they're never allowed to come back.
Right. Yep, so they, within their role, they have it worked in where they also do what we call sophomore checks. And so they'll go back through the students in the majors that they kind of oversee, make sure things look good, reach out to the sophomores to say, are you staying on track, that sort of thing. Because sometimes, unfortunately, students go rogue and they add things into their plan that they initially were not approved for. And so we want to make sure that they're on track to graduating and they don't come to their senior year and realize they didn't take a class that they needed earlier on, all those sorts of
And
things.
the other
So,
exciting thing that happens is students do change majors.
yeah.
This has been known to happen.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, so again, it's built into their role to be, closely connected to freshmen and then sophomores and then kind of on an as-needed basis for juniors and seniors. Did you have a question?
I'm just curious, I think I know the answer to this, but the advisors are assigned to different academic areas. So if you have a student, for instance, in world languages, they're gonna see Emily.
Yep.
So that makes it easier. So I know who to communicate with. If there's something going on and I see a student come in with something not quite right in their plan, I can call Emily and say, hey, student X came in with this plan, and then she'll say, oh, I thought, and so we've had those conversations, and that's been great.
Oh, good.
But it's nice that
I'm
they're
always
assigned to an
grateful to hear of
academic,
success
it's nice that they're assigned to an academic
Yeah.
area, so like not everyone is seeing all scattershot majors that there's.
Right, they focus on particular majors. Unfortunately, I didn't bring that list with me, but I can, if I send that to Amanda Grimes, can she send that out?
Yes.
Perfect.
That's really
So,
helpful, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So then also in the student development and learning, that's primarily residence life activities or RDs report into that office. Housing, accountability stuff when that happens. And campus safety as well as in that area. Academic student connection.
Accountability, I take it you understand is a euphemism for kids behaving badly. Okay.
Not in violation of our community standards.
Right.
Not in violation of the concept, but the community standards,
Right.
yes.
So one thing that I told my faculty in World Languages is a student is absent and it's a pattern that they should contact, and you folks have been very helpful
Okay.
in
That's a
finding
good
out,
lead-in.
is this a,
No, that's what Laura is about to tell us about.
Yeah.
okay, that's been really helpful.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll jump
Very
into
helpful.
that.
Yeah.
So we have what we call an early alert system that runs through the portal. And so again, I really encourage us all working alongside, but don't expect you to remember everything that I've said today and who all does what. So anytime you have a concern about a student, whether it's attendance or poor performance academically, which is kind of like, I would imagine that you're going to be working alongside students closely if they're underperforming, but if, say it's a rare thing for the student and we're not quite sure why all of a sudden they're getting Fs where before in the beginning of the semester they were getting As, and we want to identify kind of what's going on with the student, or they've expressed, financial struggles and are talking about potentially not being able to come back the following semester. Any concern that you might have for a student and you're not sure how to handle that, you can go into the portal, and right on the front page, anywhere you go to really on the portal, there's this submit early alert button. And so if you push that and then write out the information within that, that'll come to our student success advisors, and so then they will connect with you and also the student, and then also other support systems on campus, so their peer advisor, their resident director, whoever can help to support that student for whatever that issue is, they'll kind of activate that support system and work alongside you guys to help resolve that.
And that's extremely important. The
Absolutely.
earlier we have an indication that a student may have a problem, they have a tremendous track record of turning things around if they know early.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for emphasizing the early part, because so kind of on the global side, I would say that they're kind of getting more aware of the tool. Oftentimes we were finding out, like, as a student was getting dropped from a class that they were struggling. And then we can't really do a whole lot other than try to get them back enrolled for the next class. So the earlier you know of an issue and can let us know, the more successful a student can be, because we can resolve those issues for them. The one kind of caveat that I wanted to make sure I mention is mental health issues. If a student is expressing suicidal thoughts or you have concerns about those sorts of things, please contact our Director of Counseling Services. So Carrie Dashner is within the Holton Health and Wellness Services, kind of across the hall there. And she would respond to anything mental health related.
Her name is
So-
Dashner, D-A-S-H.
And actually, I have her business card, so I'll pass
Okay,
those
good.
around. So any sort of mental health emergency related concern that you have about a student, please go directly to her during kind of normal hours so that she can follow up immediately with you. And then if it's after normal hours, contact our campus safety, because then they can get a hold of Carrie for you as well. We had a couple situations over the last couple of years where faculty have submitted alerts on students who have expressed suicidal thoughts through the alert system, and there can sometimes be a delay, so let's try to get those handled immediately. So if you can contact her, that would be great.
Although I will say, anytime I've used the alert system, you guys have handled it really quickly,
Great.
and it's been really effective.
Thank you.
We had, and not just academic issues, but several issues last year that were I was concerned about a student, one student having a sleep problem, and his sleep schedule was totally turned around just because he didn't have a roommate, and he was in a dorm room, and his computer was his alarm, and I mean, it was just some issues that he was sleeping all day and he was up all night, and so it took several of us, but the alert, to get him working through that problem, but the alert system was terrific, so.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So I encourage you, you know, right away as you're thinking about students, maybe you already have students in mind right now who are struggling in classes, so please start using that right away, because I know that oftentimes we kind of can forget some things from orientations if we don't use the tool right away, so please do that so that it becomes a habit. And if you have any other questions.
Is there a midterm check of any kind?
Yes, yep, so there's actually an early progress check which is done, I believe, during the third week of classes. And Carrie Williams sends out kind of a proctor, or an initiation of that process, asking faculty to submit what's called an early progress check. And faculty are asked to submit something on every single student. So you would indicate if you don't have concerns about any of your students, you would indicate that, but then also report any concerns that you have at that point. And then we also do look at midterm grades, because faculty are required to report anything under a C for freshmen, is that correct,
All
Dina?
freshmen, you.
Oh, right,
all
okay.
grades.
But then for
Sophomores,
upperclassmen,
yeah,
it's C or
sophomores and
below.
above, it's C- or lower.
Gotcha, thank you. Yep, so we look at that as well and then follow up with students to see what the gap there is and make sure they're getting the resources that they need to be successful.
And that's coming up soon, is it not?
Yeah, midterm grades are due Tuesday. We'll be looking at that very soon. Yeah. So as I said, I'll pass out Carrie Dashner's business card so you guys have her contact information and then also my business card as well.
And I hope you picked up that Laura's group supports our students off campus as well,
Yes. Yep.
not just campus students. Well, Tammy told you a little bit about how to get promoted. Now Amy's going to tell you how to really get promoted.
Yeah. Now, can I hold something up on like I have a little presentation I was gonna show?
Thanks.
Is
I
that-
am
Can I use
absolutely
that?
ignorant about these things. Go for it.
I think it should be
I hope you
fine.
don't cut Mindy off. Who else is
I'll
joining
leave it
us?
up, I just,
Okay.
I won't close it. If it doesn't work, that's fine, I just,
Who else has joined us? We have a couple of people on the phone now.
Bye everyone, nice meeting you.
Thank you.
is anyone there on the phone with us now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm Lori McVeigh.
Hi.
Lori?
Hi. Hello. Yes, hi.
So we have Mindy and Lori. Anybody else?
Sherry Bates.
Sherry Bates, great. Are you able to hear us when we're speaking? Has it been loud enough?
Yes, I can hear.
Good.
I'm just gonna pull this up real quick.
So are you able to see what's happening right now?
I'm on phone only.
I cannot,
I am too.
I'm on the app and I can see somebody's face.
Hi.
Hi. But maybe if you share screen, then it could show me too, but it doesn't matter, don't go to trouble doing that, I can listen.
Well, these are the lovely PowerPoints on the merit plan, and otherwise we can talk through.
Oh, yeah, I can get those.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
And I
actually, we can send those out after.
Yeah, this is one I just created for today, so I can share this. I just thought it would be nice to have a visual. Okay. Is everyone on the phone still okay? I didn't knock anybody off, right? Yeah?
No, I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay.
There's nobody there.
It's over
Okay.
here.
Where's it gone?
Okay, and I have a couple things I'll pass out, just so you can kind of look them over while I'm talking. So one of each, please. Okay, so my name is Amy James, and I am one of the faculty librarians here on campus. And I see some familiar faces, but I don't know all of you. But I am a member of the Faculty Development Committee. I am not the chair. Dr. Matt Hill is the chair. So if there are additional questions beyond what I can answer, please contact me or contact him. But today I'm just going to be talking to you about the details of the merit plan. So the purpose of the merit plan is to promote professional development and growth, recognize service to the university through what is called bumps that we'll talk about, and then encourage academic excellence and acknowledge related achievements in teaching and in scholarship. And the merit plan was revised, and we have a new merit plan system in place that this past year was the first year that we had implemented the new merit plan, so that's what we'll be talking about. And merit plans are due each year in February, usually the beginning of February. And then we usually get them back during the last faculty meeting in the end of the spring semester. Normally, that's when we will get them back. And you'll be able to see how many points you've earned based on what you requested. The Faculty Development Committee reviews the merit plans, and then we just give a recommendation onto the provost, who will give the final call in terms of what points you have earned.
Let me mention a couple of things. You may be intending to mention them later, but just for this
Yeah,
crowd.
yeah, go ahead.
The merit plan covers the calendar year preceding the February in which you turn the merit plan in. It is not an academic year plan. So if you turn this in February of 18, it's anything you accomplished in all of 2017. So what you're going to be doing in the spring of this academic year, you need to accumulate and remember, because it's going to apply to the submission you make in February of 19.
Yes, so all faculty are now required to complete a merit plan each year. And people who have faculty rank but are on the staff administrative salary schedule, you're allowed to participate in the merit plan for purposes of rank and level placement, but without any relation to salary. And then for new faculty members, you are allowed to include any activities that you completed or took part in from the time you signed your contract up until the December 31st of this year, so that you'd be able to include that on your merit plan. The minimum requirements, excuse me, for the merit plan would be that you meet with your classes and are prepared. You are participating in your committee assignments. Now, the first year, I don't believe you have committee assignments, but then the second year, you'll have committee assignments. Any task forces that you're asked to be on, that you're available during office hours or by appointment with your students, that you attend any institutional meetings or workshops, and you are active with your advising responsibilities, that you hand out student evaluations, and that you
And make
are...
sure they get turned in.
And make sure they get turned in, yeah. And that you are participating in the community, in the Spring Arbor community, in your local community, and in your chosen profession as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Please.
Aren't student evaluations online? We don't do the paper one, right?
On campus, they are.
Because I'm like,
Now,
I thought that I got
there-
evaluations, but I don't remember paper copies.
Yeah, there's also a discussion going on about the efficacy of the online evaluations, because the percentage rate is relatively low. Now, research indicates that even with a relatively low percentage participation, the directional information that you get is still accurate. But we actually have a group looking at this and considering it. One alternative that's being considered, for example, is for faculty on campus to permit 15 minutes at the end of your last class for the students to either log on or use their phones to complete the evaluation, which at least some institutions have found increases the participation rate.
Can faculty see what percentage of their classes have actually completed the evaluation? At a university, when I taught at Trine University,
Just give the percentage.
you can see that?
Yeah,
I just haven't figured that out.
You'll also get sort of a composite score.
Yeah.
The reason that we went electronic, frankly, is that at the sites currently, and it used to be the case on campus, that the paper evaluations had to be submitted to a neutral party. All comments were then keyed because students were concerned that faculty would recognize their handwriting and there would be repercussions. It's extremely
Time-consuming.
burdensome. But we piloted on campus to see how the electronic evaluations work with the intention probably of taking that out to the sites as well.
I mean, like, can we see before the evaluations are due, how many students have completed? Because I think it was, when I taught at Trine, we couldn't see what we were getting scored
I
as
don't
faculty.
think in the current system that's available.
Because what I remember doing is being like, if I get like 85%, I couldn't see what they were scoring me for,
Mhm.
but I could see how many completed, so I could be like, if I get 85%, then everybody gets like 10 bonus points added to like,
Good.
because it encouraged them to actually do
Well,
it.
and those are the kinds of incentives that are being explored now.
Okay,
But right now, the system that we have in place, I don't think gives you interim measures of how many students have submitted electronic evaluations.
got it.
Do we use a standard form? I mean, or do we write our own?
It's a standard form, but you're allowed to modify 3 questions at the end.
4.
4. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So it's really important with your merit plan that you provide appropriate documentation for every growth activity that you are including. So if you just say, I did this great thing, that's awesome, but we also need to see what any kind of proof that you did it, or just extra information that you would want to include in your addendum. So if you went to a conference and you presented, the conference papers or the schedule, and then it's also really helpful if you can say, like, if you did go to a conference, like how you actually incorporated what you learned into your teaching, and show what you got out of that, how you have used that here at Spring Arbor. So documentation is really important. Also, you can only move to higher levels in 10-point increments. So, for example, if you're at assistant level 2, and you've earned 8 points, you'd still need to earn 2 more points in order to move up to the next level within that rank. And it might be a little more helpful to look at the chart to see how the different,
What's the time
levels
duration
are.
for that?
What was that?
How long do you have to get those 10 points?
Well, you have to be at a rank for at least 5 years before you can apply.
If you do not make any points, you stay at the level where you are. There's no.
Okay, so there's no time dependence, so it's not.
No, the
time-dependent.
incentive is on you, because if you move to the next level, your compensation goes up.
Right.
So if I get 10 points this year, and I get another 10 points the next year, I just keep moving up, does that make sense?
Yes,
Is that
with-
how that
You
works?
moving up within your rank, yeah.
Right, I understand, it's not
And then-
promotion, it's different.
Right.
That's right, with a caveat, which we'll come to after you get through the break, the percentages.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I do have a part later where I'll talk about the ratio in each level as well of
Well,
teaching excellence.
That's what I want to comment on.
Okay, yeah, yep. So anyways, yeah, so you put down up to, you put down how many points you think it's worth, and you can look at the sheet that I did pass out that just has a suggestion, but it's, that's like up to that many points. So you can request a certain number of points, and then the committee will recommend, they will either say, okay, that seems like that's a great, a good number of points, or maybe it should be worth more than that from whatever you've listed, and then the provost will be the final call on all of those points that you will receive.
Yeah, permit me to make a comment on that. I read all of the merit plans at the same time. It takes 2.5 days.
Yeah.
I read them all very carefully. I don't always agree with the recommendations of the committee, but what I promise is I'm being totally consistent, which is why I want to do everybody at the same time. So that if I'm deciding something described this way is worth X, I work very hard to make sure that everybody gets X. If I see people who are doing a project together. I want to make sure that both parties receive the same points. It's that sort of thing. So I end up, and so I will say to you, if you have a question about how, when you get your points back, if you have a question about how something was achieved, come to me early, because if you come to me months later, it's just like we tell students that if you have a grade appeal, it's not possible to replicate the experience of the class. Okay? I will, the closer it is to the time in which I did the whole review, the better off we all are. The other thing I might mention is that the process we had in place heretofore for determining of steps, which is, think of that as the predecessor to points, was very manual, very difficult, and the associate provost kind of worked it in the midst of everything else that he was doing. The actual points assignment is done relatively quickly, because the committee reads everything usually by the end of February, and I read everything as soon as possible after that, so that I'm usually finished with the determination of points by the first week or so of March. It's the process then to go from there to the contracts that usually takes us into May. So in March, we should be able to tell you what your points are. And that's the time, if you want to discuss it, that's the time to come in and do that. To do it in May or June when the contracts are issued and to try to replicate the whole process in March is problematic and frustrating. So we don't want to do that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too is that you are allowed to use banked points for the next year's level placement when you get promoted. So when you get to the top of your rank, you still have to, like if you move to the top of your rank right away in terms of you have so many points that you've moved up all the way to the top, you still have to wait the 5 years before you can apply for promotion. But meanwhile, you can be banking points that you can use when you do get promoted to move up to the next.
So as soon as you're promoted, you may be on level 3
Right.
in that new rank in terms of compensation.
Yeah. And then there is a section on the merit plan where you have to say if you've received any pay or load credit for an activity. If you've received either through SAU or elsewhere, you do have to put whether you've already received pay for that activity. And that might, you might not get, merit, steps for that in terms of the pay, if you've already received it elsewhere. So there is a ratio of, so there's scholarship and teaching excellence, and these are the ratios for each level for the points that you have to earn. So if you are starting at instructor level, you need to earn 5 scholarship points and 25 teaching excellence. And then assistant, 35 teaching excellence, 15 scholarship, and so forth. And so this is how the breakdown needs to be. And there's a lot of suggestions on the sheet that I gave you for different activities that would count in teaching excellence or scholarship. And then each department also has provided the committee with a list of activities that are specific to their department. So, for example, like a list of top tier presses, middle tier presses, lower tier presses for your specific discipline, just because the committee, we're not experts in every field, so we don't know what, what presses might be at the top and what might be in the middle. So, yeah, so that's kind of how.
Let me address this a little bit too. We are a teaching institution. Scholarship is very important, but fundamentally we are a teaching institution. And so what we're trying to do, particularly if you're at a junior rank, is to ensure that you are focusing on becoming an excellent teacher. So the points that are available, points are available however you want to earn them. But in terms of eventual promotion, you have to have 35 teaching points to be promoted to associate. you have to have 15 scholarship points to be promoted to associate. Now, you might have banked 100 points, but if you have 100 points in scholarship and 2 points in teaching, you're not going to be promoted. Okay. And then you'll see at the associate rank, again, the emphasis is still on teaching. At the full professor, it's 50-50. And then the rank above that, we're looking for our senior professors to be actively involved in scholarship and professional activities. Now, this year, because it was not fully specified in the initial plan, these percentages were intended for review at the time of promotion. For this past year, because of trying to meet the budget requirement, and this was the first time that we had done this, we effectively had to make a choice about whether we would impose these percentages on every level within a rank. The trade-off was to prevent our full professors from participating in the additional 6 to 10 levels that were created in this plan for full professors. And we decided that since full professors had been stopped out for decades, and it was not specified otherwise in the plan, that the better choice was for 1 year to impose these percentages of scholarship and teaching on a level rather than a whole rank. And under the budget, that enabled us to allow our full professors to participate in the senior levels. Does that make sense? So, if you talk to people, you will discover that for this past year, if you were an assistant professor, we were taking a proportion of whatever that is, 35-15. Okay.
Yeah.
In my mind, it was 3/4, 1/4. 3/4 teaching, 1/4 scholarship. We imposed that percentage of points for moving up 1 level for this year. That is not a permanent feature of the plan, okay? The intention of the split was for the levels, for the break between scholarship and teaching to apply at the rank level, not at not the intermediate levels. Am I being totally obscure? Okay. You will hear people say, in order to move up 1 level within your rank, you've got to be at the same proportion of scholarship and teaching. So that if you wanted to move up 10 points, okay, you want to move up 1 rank, you may acquire 10 points, but if they're not at this proportion of scholarship and teaching, this past year, you didn't move up a level.
But would those points then get moved to the next year then?
2 things. One is that is not a permanent change. That was done last year in order that we could offer to the full professors that opportunity to grow. Okay. But if you have, going forward, in principle, if you've acquired 10 points, I don't care what the mix is. You move up 1 level if you have 10 points. So if you have 10 points in scholarship and you're an assistant professor, you can move up 1 level. But by the time you get to 5 levels where you're eligible for promotion to associate professor, if you don't have the majority of your points in scholarship, you are not eligible for promotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I want you to understand the system. So if it's easier for you to keep track of it year by year and level by level by maintaining that same proportion, so if you're an assistant professor, you know, 3/4 of your, whatever that turns out to be. That 35/15 is throwing me. Yeah. What proportion is that?
Yeah, so if you're an assistant, it was for each level, it was 7 teaching excellent points for every 3 scholarship points per level.
Okay.
But now it's not gonna be, it's not that way now?
Well, what I'm saying is, I'm I'm just thrown by the 35/15.
Because it's 50.
Let's do associate professor just because that's easier arithmetic for me, okay? 60% of your points, in principle, this year, were supposed to be in teaching, okay, and 40% in scholarship in order to move up one level. That is not imposed permanently. If you want to move from associate professor to full professor, if you have 30 points in teaching excellence and at least 20 points in scholarship, any points you have above that is fine. You've got your total 50 points that make you eligible for promotion, and you have the 30 in teaching that's required. Now, that this year we impose that same proportion on everybody for moving up a level this year. That is not a permanent change. Okay? There was nothing in the description of the plan that prevented us from doing that, and if we had not done that, we would not have been able to allow our full professors to go above the 5 ranks that already existed, the 5 levels already existed. So, am I being clear? Okay. So if you're looking 4 years, 5 years out, what your bogey is, make sure I've got 35 teaching excellence points and 15 scholarship points. Anything beyond that you earn can be banked.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we already talked about that. And then there's another category on there for education. So education points are in addition, and they are for terminal degree programs in your discipline that you are teaching in. And it has to be, again, it has to be a regionally accredited institution, and it must be approved by the provost, the program in the school. And points are also granted for a second master's, but only if that program is approved for credit by Academic Affairs. And the documentation that you would provide for that would be obviously any kind of transcripts, and then also a statement indicating how that education contributed to your professional development.
Okay, but let me talk about that a little bit. When an offer was made to you, it was as a result of your having been placed. Magic word, placed. I do the placement. I go to the faculty handbook and I look at the requirements for each rank. And I look at the record that you bring to me. And we do hire people who do not have a terminal degree. You can be, if they had had a terminal degree at the time of placement, their initial placement would have been higher. Okay. So we want to give people the chance, if you will, to catch up. That's the purpose of these points. The other place where it comes into play is in part the HLC requirement for faculty qualification. We have a few faculty here, for example, who have taught for many years in a particular discipline who did not meet the HLC academic requirement because they didn't have the 18 graduate hours in the discipline that they were teaching. In at least one case, the gentleman has already gone back and is on the verge of completing another master's. Okay? We're going to give him education points for that because that's above and beyond, but it does allow him to be HLC qualified. So these are special circumstances. And the intent, in effect, is to bring you to where you would have been had you had the appropriate degree when you were initially placed. So this isn't something you can do every year, just run around and collect degrees. It won't work.
Yeah.
If that appeals to you.
Yeah. And then the last thing is the bumps. There's a category for bumps on there, which is service to the university. You need to have a minimum of 3 bumps per year on your merit plan. And you will also have to show documentation for those type of things. So things you can do to earn bumps are like your committee assignments, your advising responsibilities, like if you take students to an academic conference or you're doing something outside with students, working with high school students or prospective Spring Arbor students is another one. There's a bunch of ideas on there, and each department also has their own list of things that might be used for bumps. Like, so it's, there are 3 categories. It's either academic leadership, committee work, or student-faculty interaction for those.
Well, dorm talks, for example, in your discipline would be a bump.
Yeah. Or we just, we're doing a freshman outreach initiative in the library this year, and each librarian is responsible for connecting with 75 students and meeting with those students and talking with them and being their like research kind of coach. And so that's something that we're going to be putting as a bump-worthy activity on our merit plans. But yeah, so it doesn't have to be like the rigid, exactly what's listed there, but just things that are considered service. So.
Now, you may wonder where the term bump came from. Okay. It's a short-term bump in pay. The change in level is a permanent change in your salary. The bump is only 1 year, is that correct? Or is it 2?
It's 1.
It's 1, yeah. There were some other things that are quasi-bumps that we're allowing people to have the second year for. But yeah, when this new process is in place, a bump is worth, what, $400?
Yeah, it's about $400.
It's about $400. And how many bumps are you required to accomplish without extra pay?
3. So you have to have 3, and then beyond that you would get the extra pay. But you have to have 3 as the minimum.
Now, I should mention one thing about promotion, just because you'll hear about it this year. Particularly, frankly, folks in the School of Human Services, or more properly, the people who used to be in graduate and professional studies, were not historically encouraged to participate in the merit plan. This kind of puts them in an awkward position when it comes to promotion, because you'll see the requirements in the faculty handbook as it exists right now are to earn a certain number of steps, the old equivalent to points, under the old merit plan, including the necessity to have steps under service. And we have a fair number of folks who are coming up for promotion this year who do not have any steps in service. So what we've said for the next 2 years, and I know this doesn't apply to you because you're new, but for this year's promotion cycle and for next year's promotion cycle, we will look at people as qualified under the language of the current faculty handbook. From now on, which really applies to all of you, it's the new merit plan that counts. But what we have agreed is that for those folks who did not earn service steps previously, if they earned bumps in this last round, that those bumps will count for the old service steps. So they'll be eligible for promotion. So if you hear any of that language, that's what that's about. Because we don't want to prevent them, because we've eliminated the possibility of service steps from being considered.
So yeah, I can make this available. There's like some FAQs I put on here at the end as well. And I can share this. I don't know if I'll email maybe to Amanda.
Yeah, if you would send it to Amanda, and also these 2 handouts,
Absolutely.
that
Yeah,
would be great.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to add one other thing. With respect to teaching, one of my frustrations under the old plan was there were steps for teaching excellence, but not a whole lot of definition around that. Basically, teaching excellence turned out to be either one of my students won an award, so I must have been doing a good job, or I went to a conference and I really, really, really did learn something, and I really, really did incorporate it in my syllabus, and here's the proof. I mean, that was all that was available. So what we are trying to do is to include opportunities, thank you, for additional training in teaching. At the early beginning of the year, probably before some of you came, we had a conference on AVID techniques of student studying last year, and we'll do a version of it again this year. We had a series of sessions on teaching as a learned craft that were provided by members of our School of Education. 2 years ago, we had a sequence called Back to Basics, which was essentially a basic level theology course. What are the essentials of the faith? Because frankly, we take folks who have been focused in their discipline and suddenly say, okay, now integrate faith into your discipline, without providing a lot of thought about how to do that. We also have We have several more teaching, training opportunities like that, which are going to be pointable, and participation in the Teaching Excellence Committee is point worthy. So look for opportunities like that, or even in terms of your profession, if there are things that you can participate in that will increase your ability to teach. Okay? That's what those teaching points are for. And by the way, it's not a bad thing if your kids win awards, and if you go to a conference and actually incorporate some of what you learned in your discipline, in your syllabi. But you can't just say, I went to a conference and it was really neat. Okay? That's where sometimes the committee and I disagreed.
So how do you prove incorporation of what you learned in a conference in a class? How do you
Well,
document that?
Well, for example, if you went, I'm thinking church history this week. You went to a conference and you went to all the sessions on Puritanism,
Okay.
okay? And you have some of the topics and you say, here was my old syllabus on American religious history. Here's my new syllabus on American religious history. I've been able to incorporate
So you have
things
to,
that I learned at
okay.
the conference.
So you have to incorporate it into the syllabus or just any kind of documentation? Because I'm going to try doing a different lecture style, which I've never done before.
Okay,
But I'm not going to do it the whole semester.
right. And
How would I document that?
Well-
Taking pictures, something like? I mean, would that be enough? Taking like a picture of.
yeah, just say, this is something I learned at this conference or in this professional activity that I have brought back to campus, and it makes me a more effective teacher. And that, documenting that depends on
Write it up.
in what way you became a
Write it
more
up.
effective
Write it up.
teacher.
Because I don't know how to measure a more effective teacher. But all right.
Well,
I understand.
at the
Write
end
it
of
up
the
and
day,
assess, think about, I mean, do a reflection as well,
yeah.
maybe
We're-
as far as
we're not-
did it
we're-
work, what worked, what didn't.
The truth is, there isn't a good way to measure,
Right.
have you really become a better teacher?
Right.
So unfortunately, we're probably measuring effort, you know, and steps that over time we hope will enable you to become a better teacher. That's what we're looking for. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your coming.